Good day. Welcome to Westchester Talk Radio, westchestertalkradio.com. Produced by Sharka Creative, made possible by the good folks at Robeson Oil, the house that service built. By Michael Labriola, landscape design and construction of Armonk. By Jaguar Land Rover, Rochelle, White Plains, and Mount Kisco. And by Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth through a fiduciary standard. John Bailey is back with us. John Bailey is the publisher and editor of WPCNR.com, White Plains CitizenNet Reporter. John Bailey, welcome back. The new school year has begun. Yes. What are our hopes for having a pre-COVID kind of a year? Or do we just still have to be on the lookout for this thing and its many variations?
Well, in White Plains, New York, USA, the school district is very optimistic. They're opening as usual, and the mask mandate is lifted completely, and they removed all the panels in the classrooms, and it's shuffling through the halls as usual. And testing is not mandatory every day. And if you do appear to have the symptoms, they give you an aggregate test if your parents want them. And they're very optimistic. But they do not have any vaccine mandate either for all the students. And this is apparently the model for most of Westchester County, New York, USA. Somewhat, that's what the superintendent told me. And on Friday, the superintendents of Westchester County, the school superintendents, are having a briefing by the district attorney, Mimi Roca, on all of the new New York State gun laws and how it applies, and the court orders that the school districts can request on persons threatening the school.
Mm-hmm. Now, I have a neighbor who has a child and got a couple of kids who were in the New York City school system, and turned out one of the kids were in what I guess you would call a charter school a couple of blocks away from where I went to grammar school in Manhattan. And the father told me recently, I said to him, I said, so your son went there? He said, yeah, but he didn't graduate from there. He graduated from someplace else. I said, why didn't he stay in the original school? And he said, because a kid came in one day and got caught with a gun. So I said, well, weren't there any metal detectors in the school? He said, yeah, there were, but they didn't basically use them all the time like they should. So what's the point of a metal detector if you are not going to use it? Are metal detectors a must in public schools around Westchester now, or does this still just vary by district?
Well, we don't know. We don't know.
We shall see.
My feeling is if there were metal detectors, you would have known it by now. It's a deterrent. I mean, the question is locations of where they are. And but on the other hand, as with most things, I wouldn't report that sort of matter. But I think it's a prerequisite that the school districts and the schools have to make the school population aware that they have detection or don't. They don't have to say how or where, but they.
Yeah, they have to.
The lack of information,
are as safe as they can possibly be, and that I believe is a state mandated law. That's in state education law. But wondering whether or not individual districts put up metal detectors or bring in security guards. Doesn't the new state gun law specifically say now, the laws around the state after what the Supreme Court did say that you cannot bring a gun onto the property of any school unless you have the okay
in New York State. That's what they say.
Yeah.
You can't do it. So how do you find out whether they got it or not? You have to be able to wand. I mean, everybody has to be wanded.
So is this meeting being called by Mimi Roca, the Westchester DA, with all the school superintendents, basically a reminder, hey, no guns, no matter what, unless there's a school safety agent on premises who has a special permit for it, or you need to call the police in for some reason, and hopefully that would never be the case.
Well, it's it remains to be seen how intense this meeting is going to be. I mean, since it hasn't held yet. But my feeling is that the DA's press release was highly detailed. She has a terrific slideshow. I don't know if you've seen it, but it is in Spanish and English on the slides, which I think is, hey, what a great idea. And she's really encapsulated it. And the the orders that school districts can obtain for persons threatening the school or considered a threat or perhaps unstable, whatever, how fast can they be issued? Do they have to go through the courts? I would imagine they would. But I mean, I don't know. And that's what it is all about. And I think Roca has been very hands-on since she has taken over, and very proactive, and done a very good job in working these laws. And I have to congratulate the legislature, the New York State legislature, which I am always criticizing for their ineptitude. They are inept, and but they did do a good job on the new gun laws that they got done in a hurry, but of course didn't talk about it too much.
They acted. They didn't talk. The governor said, let's do this, and they got that done. One thing about the Supreme Court ruling, as much as I hated what they did about the open carry law for states like New York, and specifically a story and an issue and a lawsuit that was filed by people in the state of New York, is that they gave, and I've mentioned this before, they gave that opening to, you can open carry, but you can do whatever you have to do to make sure, in so many words, that ruling said that you can make sure in New York State that nobody carries if you really don't want them to. And I think the state saw that opening, that loophole there, and they did a great job of taking advantage of that. And that's the way it should be. You want to carry a gun, move to Idaho, okay? And that's not disparaging anybody who lives out there. That's a way of life out there. Move to Tennessee if you feel like you need to carry a gun with you when you go get your morning coffee and you go to Dunkin' Donuts in the morning. I'm sure you got Dunkin's down in Tennessee and in Idaho. So,
yeah, I mean, that's what's scary is about those states is you have to be on your best behavior. You don't want to get anybody mad.
Right. And then you get into, if you do get somebody mad, you get into the laws down that we have in some states in the South, which I think are good laws about the right to self-defense, but yet what is self-defense and what is not? If you say you think, well, that guy looked at me the wrong way, I think he's going to do something, I'm going to pull out my 6-shooter and take care of him now. Well, that's not self-defense because somebody looked at you the wrong way. And then you get into
Trayvon Martin shooting comes to
like
mind.
The Trayvon Martin case, for example, with George Zimmerman. Yeah. What was self-defense? What was not self-defense? And I think once you open the gun laws up too much, then you start getting into all these other laws about I can do whatever I have to do to protect myself, or maybe I should educate myself better on what's okay to do to protect myself and what's not.
Temper management is a good way to start. If you have a tendency to be a hothead, you have to work on that because it gets you into trouble. And
we could also look at it from the standpoint of we should all be able to look and laugh at ourselves, right? So if you think if you're an open carry state and you got a gun and you think somebody's looking or at you the wrong way or laughing at you, well, I don't know, maybe there's something funny about you that you can laugh along with and about too. So that's
or maybe you just sort of mosey out of the bar backwards. Well, look, we'll see it.
Yeah, it's like, at the age of 18, my hair started to go and I get all the jokes. Yeah, I'd laugh along with them and maybe, think of something to throw in. And eventually what I said was, well, it's a lot easier to take care of like this than if I had my old full head of Dante de Blasio style Afro hair. And this is much easier to take care of this way. So, you got to look and laugh at yourself, as you and I both do, I think, from time to time. Somebody's got something funny about you.
Somebody has to be the adult in the room.
Well, it might be something funny about you, too, that's worth, you look in the mirror and laugh at and about it, too. We talked COVID. Where are the COVID numbers around this county now in Westchester?
I really like them. We've had 4 straight weeks of going down and staying even, and I'm very impressed. And it's masks off on the Westchester County B line buses, which is now we wonder whether they're going to take the mask thing off of these MTA and the subways.
Yeah, on the subways and trains, MTA, Metro North, no more masking as well too, and that came
Yeah,
out of the governor and the MTA yesterday. The governor did promise something about that would be coming soon.
this is
So,
going
do
to,
you think this was a political move on her part
yes,
to get some votes?
absolutely. Yeah, everything she's doing now is to curry voter favor by doing stuff that people want and will be happy with. It's obvious. And you should really cross your fingers because we got 2 months before election day. And if the figures are off and raging by November the 8th, she's in trouble.
Yeah, 3, 4 weeks ago, she had in one poll a 24-point lead on Lee Zeldin. Now in the Trafalgar, which is an independent poll, just a few days ago, that lead is down to about 4.5 points. The margin of error is 2.9. So if the margin of error is wrong in favor of Zeldin, that's about 1.5. If that margin of error is wrong in the favor of Hochul, then it's closer to 7 points, which is still something you got to be aware of. No doubt about that. But this, to me, begs the question where Kathy Hochul keeps getting pressed about whether or not she should call a special session to deal more with crime,
Yeah.
more with bail reform. And she says, let's see what happens. Let's see if the reforms we made work after the new legislature gets seated in January. This begs the question to me, if things keep going downhill in the polls, does she call a special session of the legislature for this right before the election?
It's too late because she's damned if she is and damned if she doesn't. However, the only thing in her favor is Mr. Zeldin has no money. He was going to every right wing funder he could find and actually taking a. Didn't he go to Trump's place down in New Jersey?
Yeah, funny
Yeah,
you said that. Out to Bedminster. And here's what Lee Zeldin has said within the past couple of days. He's a
yeah.
Donald Trump supporter, and he might campaign with Trump. He says, whether I do or don't, I'm not going to back away from my association with Donald Trump or the fact that he thinks I should be the next governor. Might this, as we move more towards the election, knowing how unpopular Trump is here in New York State, do you think this could be the determining and deciding factor in favor of Hochul in the end, that it becomes an anti-Donald Trump vote?
Well, I think you have to hope that New York is so absolutely off the wall as far as Trump goes that that will save Governor Hochul. However, it is alarming that she has dropped about 10 points in a week,
Yeah,
according to those polls.
and 20
Um,
in 3 weeks. Yeah.
yeah, well, I mean, what is happening is that she is not capitalized. She is not telling the truth on the numbers of COVID about how really good they are. And she should be beating the drum for the fact that we've got it under control. Let's do it now. But the press release every day doesn't change. There
What
has to be
about
more. Yeah.
Yeah, what about debates? Channel 11, Channel 5 both say, yeah, come on, Kathy, come on, Lee, let's sit down. Channel 11 and Channel 2, actually, CBS and Pix, both say, come on, Kathy, come on, Lee, let's get in here and let's sit down and debate. And Zeldin has agreed he'd like to have 5 debates overall around New York State, 2 here in the New York
I think
State.
if she
If the
doesn't
governor
debate
agrees to
him,
debate.
it's a terrible decision for her. If she debates and Zeldin just flays her with attacks, it's going to really hurt her. If I were her, I would not debate. I would run heavy spotting. And she has the money to do it. This is going to be won by the effectiveness of Hochul's campaign on the air. Because
But don't you think some people, and maybe a significant amount of people, might say, well, the governor doesn't want to debate. What does she have to hide? Why not? I
well, that's
always
what
like it
will
when
be
the
said.
candidates get in there and go after each other. And I think when you debate, sometimes you come up with some interesting nicknames for each other too that stick for forevermore.
Well, the problem is debates have turned into a show. They're no longer the classic debates, and they're not moderated well at all. The moderators just don't have any chutzpah to interrupt and just cut them off or turn off their mics, and they could have done that a lot during the Trump campaign debates.
And you and I have both moderated debates and helped put debates together, and you and I have both stepped in with people we've known for a long time around Westchester during debates and would say, Mr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so, I have to move on here. We have to move on here. You had your allotted time. We did sit down a couple of times with your representatives and work out the rules in terms of this debate. And despite the fact that we know each other and been friends for 30 years or so, we do have to stick to the rules. You and I do that. Why don't others do that too?
Because they're paid vast sums of money. They do what they're told, and particularly with one particular network, the anchor who handled the debate worked for a station that was obviously pro-Trump. I was a network that was so pro-Trump, it was an embarrassment to media, and they talked.
When I've gotten involved in those kinds of scenarios, I've liked it when the Politico would kind of shoot me eyes that say, hey, John, I thought you and I were friends. That's what the look says. And I would always point out we have been friends for a long time, but we do have to stick to the rules of the debate as we agreed to, as you and your people agreed to, too. If you would have preferred something different, we could have worked that out in advance. But for now, and maybe next time we will. But for now, we do have to stick to what we did.
But Zeldin has a lot of good attack points. He can go at Hochul on, but he needs money to put them out. And that's via TV spots, and they will be the most vicious ads you will see. They will take advantage. Well, how can you have a woman run New York State? I can see that done in some way, and she doesn't really have the experience, but hell, I mean, that's what's going to happen. But if she debates, she has to slice him up and not be afraid to just say, well, Mr. Zeldin, you are from the two counties who have the highest infection rate in New York State for the last 2 years.
And he leads in the polls by 1 point on Long Island right now, which is very close within the margin of error. Maybe Hochul really leads. But if she loses Long Island, she loses the election. And he should win Long Island because that's his home base.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But no, Long Island has terrible leadership in both counties. They did not really enforce much COVID restrictions at all that I know of.
Yeah, and you know, I'm out there a lot, and I would walk on the streets of certain towns and say, gee, like, don't we have a pandemic on? We got a lot of people eating outdoors here today in the middle of a pandemic with no mask on, and they're all kind of close to each other. And oh, by the way, like, hey, guys, have you seen the latest numbers? Well, what do you have a mask on for, John? Like, check the numbers, and maybe you should have a mask on, too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, let me just say that Long Island is primarily responsible for the New York City rise in COVID. And, you know, they commute on in, and no, those two counties are bad actors as far as COVID goes, and that's just what the numbers say. Every day they're ahead of they're ahead of 7 counties in total infections every day, and that has been that way for 8 to 10 weeks. Leadership of those counties, leadership from that congressman, Mr. Zeldin, missing in action. He's not a leader. And
John Bailey is the publisher and editor of White Plains CitizenNet Reporter online at WPCNR.com. Also the host of a couple of TV shows on your cable systems around Westchester, White Plains Weekend, People to Be Heard. John Bailey, the elections for Congress locally. Just a couple of weeks ago,
Yeah.
we had primary day number 2 at the end of August. And I still, what's the new expression? Wrap my head around it. Even though it's all done, I still can't wrap my head around all of this, what we had to go through this year. And we still have a general election. In District 16, in southern Westchester and the North Bronx, Democratic primary Jamal Bowman trashed his opponents, Vedat Gashi and Catherine Parker, both members of the Westchester County Board of Legislators. Were you surprised at the margin of victory for Bowman?
I certainly was. I certainly was. I felt that with the heavy white population in the newly rerun district, this would hurt Mr. Bowman. And also, what helped him was that it was he had 2 opponents and not 1.
Gashi put on a very good press, I thought, but I thought the results
would have
in the
done
end
better.
showed that regardless of race, it's more about philosophy and ideology nowadays. Whether or not you agree with that philosophy or ideology, if you agree with it and want to vote for it, that's what the system is about, and that's the way we are supposed to be. Instead of
Gashi
skin color or their religion or their background or their this or that, who's the best candidate that's going to get things done? And that's the way this system and society is supposed to be. In the 17th district, a lot of the White Plains area.
One more thing about the Bowman situation. The votes that Gashi and Parker got basically equaled Bowman's votes.
So what he got overall.
When Parker entered that race, that was a huge mistake by the Democratic Party. She shouldn't have done that because you split the votes that were opposed to Bowman in the first place.
Bottom line, Bowman trashed his opponents. That's what it came down to. In 17th.
Yes, you can. Now we wonder what he will do back in Congress and how much. And he ran a very good, he completely ignored requests for an interview. And I interviewed Mr. Gashi, but Ms. Parker did not want to be interviewed. And I thought Gashi was very sensible, but that's the way it is. I mean, he won. The advantage of incumbency, maybe a lot of people felt the districts were redrawn by the Democrats originally to get him because he defeated Mr. Engel. And I believe that's right. He defeated, who was that guy anyway?
Yeah, he did. By the way, he did
when they disappeared.
Elliot Engel. Yeah, as did Nita Lowy, who used to rep what is now the 17th, a little above the 16th district nowadays. So Gashi got the endorsements of the previous rep that Bowman beat out, Elliot Engel, and from the legendary Nita Lowy too, and yet Bowman was still able to cruise to victory. Now, in the 17th, in the area that Nita Lowy used to represent when she retired a couple of years ago, and she was in office for over 30 years, as was Elliot Engel too. That district covers 17th, White Plains, out to Port Chester, across 287, a little further up into northern Westchester, and basically all of Rockland County too. And Sean Patrick Maloney moved south by a district, basically kicked out Mondaire Jones, who I thought did a really good, effective job. And I think anybody in either party in Rockland County, for example, and in that district would tell you that Democrat or Republican, that even Republicans have told me that, I could work with Mondaire. Easy guy to work with. Like, what did Sean Patrick Maloney do this for?
He's smart.
But it turned out he did. And he beat Alessandra Biaggi, who was kind of a nomad after she decided to run for Congress, and the original district she was
totally
run in, got booted out by the special master. She had to find a place to go, and she picked the 17th, which I thought was a wrong move on her part. She got lauded for how she's making inroads, and the polls are showing this, and the numbers are showing that. And on election day, John, you're going to wake up and see a really big surprise. The only surprise I saw on election day, really, maybe not such.
You really wonder these
how much she lost by, basically.
These polls are advertising agencies.
Yeah,
they tell you what to want to hear, and that's the way they make money. After that 2016 debacle of polling, I cannot believe polls. I can't believe a poll that can go down 10 points in a week.
Yeah, to
10
me, it's
points in a
odd
week.
that, glad you brought that up. To me, it's odd that Hochul went down, pretty odd. Hochul went down so far, so fast. And you ask the pundits, well, what's the reason for this? And their answers didn't seem to add up. Well, it's all about student debt loan, and that a lot of people don't want to pay the debts for kids who went to college and maybe they didn't go to college. And so Kathy Hochul dropped 20 points because people are opposed to the student debt loan bailout, or whatever you want to call it. I don't really call it a bailout. I think the educational system in this country had to be changed, and students and former students had to be helped in some way, shape, or form. Or is it more because people see that she's not doing a lot about crime and not doing a lot about other things too?
Well,
To me,
the
that's
crime
where
is
the
the only
numbers lie,
issue.
if those numbers happen to be true.
Yeah, the crime is Zeldin's big issue. And the problem is they have to start pressing him on the COVID situation, the monkeypox situation, the ongoing. What is your policy? Are you going to Cuomoize the state? You take nothing away from Governor Cuomo. He handled that. He saved the damn state by his policies. He saved perhaps your life, my life, and he held the fort till the vaccines arrived. Now, what would Mr. Zeldin do in an emergency in New York State? Not much, because Republicans don't do much. And we have seen that. They don't want to do anything. They support, like, for example, this power situation we're in the county, which is an absolute disgrace of the leadership of the state that has been allowed to happen. And I'm talking about this new green rate, which is now double what it was. And I find out last week, John, that we are paying for a stew of electricity. Some of it is by wind, some of it is by solar, some of it is by fossil fuel. And you know what? No one can tell. No one can segregate the electrons. It's all electricity. Who knew? That means this whole idea that paying for a green rate to help save the environment by using clean energy sources, well, you're not actually getting clean energy sourced electricity. It is a lie.
One thing, and I think we've talked about this before, we have not seemingly missed Indian Point during the heat waves of this past summer.
No, we haven't. And however, I mean, the electric usage was through the roof. And we are looking at, let's see, in July, I had about a $290 bill. And this last month, it was up to about $390. And in December, at the new green rate, if I stay with it, it's going to be over $400. And that's probably going to be a lot more than what Con Ed is charging me. So if people start doing addition, this whole idea, the green rate and green power, and incentive for installing green power in your ancient plants, well, they're not going to do that because there's no incentive. We also learned that you pay as a, say, Sustainable Westchester has to buy electricity off the grid. And the electricity off the grid is based on the highest price source of it, which is natural gas. What is going through the roof in price? Natural gas. So Sustainable Westchester, with their new rate, has to pay the high rate for the electricity. Nobody knew that either, really. We always felt that, hey, it's a bid and it's whatever the price is, but we didn't know it was a set price. Highest price pays. Highest
it came down to basically
paid.
We'll find out about it after we institute it and do it. And so far, the news is not that good. John Bailey, thank you for joining us here, as always, here on Westchester Talk Radio on the Beat in Westchester. John Bailey, publisher, editor, White Plains CitizenNet Reporter, WPCNR.com, host of On Cable Systems Around Westchester, White Plains Week, and People to Be Heard. John Bailey, we thank you. We'll talk to you again soon.
Until that time.
Till then, John Bailey here on Westchester Talk Radio. I'm John Marino, and we are made possible by, first of all, produced by Shark Creative, and made possible by Robeson Oil, the house that service built. By Michael Labriola, landscape design and construction of Armonk. By White Plains, New Rochelle, Mount Kisco, Jaguar Land Rover, located up and down the Hudson Valley, and by Hightower, Westchester, too. Catch all of our Westchester, Rockland, Putnam, and Dutchess, Orange, and Fairfield County Talk Radio programming on our YouTube channel, Shark Creative YouTube. Download our app, Westchester Talk, and now, yes, we are on Apple Podcasts, too.